This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good afternoon, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila in Thailand. Hello, Gila.
Hello, good afternoon, Alma, and good afternoon to all our viewers. I'm Gila Pablo, your EBC Thailand correspondent, bringing you the latest news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
Today's headlines. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology Director Renato Solidum said the aerosol being observed in Metro Manila possibly came from the Taal volcano.
The Philippines is expected to receive 5 million doses of the American-made Pfizer coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-19 vaccines next month.
And the UK Ambassador James Kariuki told reporters that the humanitarian crisis in Myanmar is now getting worse each day as a third wave of COVID ravages the country.
This landmark initiative.
The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, formally launched on Friday a region-wide program that would ramp up restoration efforts and plant at least 10 million native trees in a span of 10 years.
First, here in the country, Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS Director Renato Solidum Jr. on Wednesday night said the aerosol being observed in Metro Manila possibly came from the Taal volcano. He said based on the air parcel trajectories of the Weather Bureau on Wednesday, sulfur or SO2 can be expected to drift within the lower 1.5-kilometer atmosphere to the west of Taal and north over coastal southwest Luzon. A high level of SO2 emission with an average of 7,830 tons per day was measured in the Taal volcano on Wednesday. Strong SO2 odors have also been reported in towns west of the volcano island these past days, according to Solidum. He added that the heavy rains being experienced over the metropolis and southwest Luzon will help scrub off some of the airborne SO2 to lessen its effects. According to PHIVOLCS, the SO2 gas could irritate the skin, eyes, nose, and throat. The Weather Bureau earlier forecast isolated rains across the country due to localized thunderstorms. Rains are likely in the afternoon or evening. The Taal volcano has been on alert level 2, decreased unrest since July 23. Under this level, sudden steam or gas-driven explosions, volcanic earthquakes, minor ashfall, and lethal accumulations or expulsions of volcanic gas can occur and threaten areas within and around Taal Volcano Island or TVI.
Authorities reported that at least 80 Filipinos are still waiting for the government chartered plane to land in Kabul, Afghanistan from Dubai in the United Arab Emirates after the original flight was deferred on Tuesday night amid the chaotic situation in the Afghan capital's airport. Joseph Glenn Gumpal, president of the Filipino Community Group Samahang Pilipino sa Afghanistan, or SPA, is hoping the flight would leave as soon as possible, citing reports that the Hamid Karzai International Airport is now clear. Meanwhile, the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA, thanked the DFA for its close coordination in securing the welfare of the Filipinos in the host country. Let's watch this.
Okay, we are closely coordinating with the DFA sa team ni Secretary Locsin at sa DFA. Pinag-utos si Secretary Bello na we coordinate and partner with the DFA kung kakailangan ng tulong natin sa pagpapauwi kasi walang Filipino Overseas Labor Office sa Afghanistan. Sa ngayon, ang bilang ng DFA ay 135 ang mga OFW sa Afghanistan. Nagkaroon na ng first repatriation flight 2 days ago ang paglapag nila, may 3 days ago, I'm sorry. And yun na nga, nagkaroon ng arrival ng 35 Afghanistan OFWs at they are now safely billeted in a hotel quarantine facility. In fact, dinalaw ko sila doon kahapon. Kinamusta ko sila at okay naman sila. Ngayon, ang naiiwan na lang sa Afghanistan ay around 100 na kailangan ilikas at sa pagkakaalam ko, meron ng sinasaayos, USEC, na second repatriation flight. Sa tingin ko yung 100 na yan, mga 3 o 4 pa yan na repatriation flight. Nag-utos ni Sec Bello na gawin ng lahat para tulungan, i-assist ang mga nanunumbalik nating OFWs from Afghanistan. And nagsimula kahapon, yung pagdalaw ko sa hotel quarantine facility, ang briefing na sa kanila. In-inform ko na rin sila kung ano yung mga benepisyo nila. Magre-revolve yan around financial assistance, livelihood assistance, saka scholarship assistance, lalo na doon sa mga collegiate level dependents. Nandiyan dyan yung Dole ACA program ni Secretary Bello. Nandiyan dyan yung Tabang OFW program. Yung 30,000 cash assistance ni na Sec Bello at Chair Popoy de Vera ng CHED, kung saan may 30,000 pesos one-off cash assistance sa mga college dependents ng returning OFWs displaced due to this pandemic. And then, meron tayong livelihood. Meron tayong individual livelihood. Yung 20,000 pesos kung active OWA member, 10,000 pesos kung inactive OWA member. And then, meron tayong group livelihood up from 100,000 to 1 million pesos kung nagsanib puwersa ang mga OFWs para magbuo ng negosyo. So, yun po. Umiikot sa livelihood, scholarship, and cash financial assistance.
On Tuesday, the 35 Filipinos were flown to Doha, Qatar by their respective companies, where they boarded a DFA chartered flight to Manila. Many countries have started evacuating their citizens from Afghanistan after Taliban forces regained control over the country. 2 decades after its rule was toppled by American forces in 2001.
Meanwhile, to the pandemic news now here in the country, the Philippines is expected to receive 5 million doses of the American-made Pfizer coronavirus disease or COVID-19 vaccines next month. Let's listen in.
Karamihan dito yung bibigyan natin are those areas na hindi pa nabibigyan ng Pfizer. We are trying to roll out to them so that in the future, once that Pfizer will pick up their deliveries, they are well aware and they are already well trained on how to handle the sensitivities of Pfizer.
We are doing everything we can to bring as many vaccines to the Philippines as we can. And then I know Secretary Galvez and the Philippine officials are doing all they can to ensure that as many people as possible can get vaccinated as quickly as they can.
Now, this is the 4th shipment of the American-made jabs procured by the government, which arrive in the country. Out of this number, 51,480 doses were already delivered to Cebu, while another 51,480 doses are scheduled for delivery to the Davao region today. The bulk of the vaccines arrived at around 8:44 p.m. aboard Air Hong Kong flight LD456. Secretary Galvez said the remaining Pfizer vaccines will be deployed to the National Capital Region, and it will be rolled out to areas that have yet to receive the American-made jabs, so they will have experience and training on how to handle it.
Defense Secretary Delphine Lorenzana on Thursday said the finalized Mutual Logistics Support Arrangement or MLSA between the Philippines and Australia will greatly help militaries of both nations in responding to disasters. I-Code MLSA will likewise facilitate rapid deployment of both forces for purposes of humanitarian assistance and disaster response. It is intended to enhance the interoperability between the AFP or Armed Forces of the Philippines and ADF, Australia Defence Force, which regularly conducts exercises under the PH Australia Defence Cooperation and the Status of Visiting Forces Agreement, or SOVFA, according to Lorenzana in a statement. Lorenzana added that the accord will allow the provision of logistics support during exercises, training, deployment, as mutually determined by both countries. The Philippines has a SOVFA with Australia that entered into force in September 2012. The SOVFA, which facilitates the entry of the two nations' visiting forces, was instrumental in 2013 during Operation Philippines Assist, where Australia assisted the country in its response to Super Typhoon Yolanda. It facilitated the rapid deployment of medical assistance, humanitarian and reconstruction support involving over 500 service personnel, numerous aircraft, and the landing ship HMAS Tobruk.
Back to the pandemic, the utilization rate of hospital beds for coronavirus disease or COVID-19 patients in Manila has increased as the number of infections in the city continues to rise. Based on the latest data as of Wednesday noon, the city government reported that 63% of its COVID-19 beds in its 6 district hospitals have been occupied. Manila has 6 district hospitals: Hospital ng Maynila, Hospital ng Sampaloc, Justice Jose Abad Santos General Hospital, Gat Andres Bonifital ng Tondo, and Santa Ana Hospital. There are 491 beds allocated for COVID-19 patients in these hospitals, which is 50% of its total hospital beds. Of this number, 310 COVID beds have already been occupied. Meanwhile, the Manila COVID-19 Field Hospital at the Quirino Grandstand and is specifically built for moderate to severe COVID-19 patients is now 89% full, with 306 out of its 344 bed capacity occupied.
The Metro Manila Council, or MMC, on Wednesday said it is leaving to the national government the decision to extend or downgrade the Enhanced Community Quarantine, or ECQ, being implemented in the region. In a virtual presser on Wednesday, Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, and concurrent MMC Chairperson Benjamin Ben-Hur Abalos Jr. said the council, composed of the 17 NCR mayors and other national government officials, said the new or extended quarantine status will take effect on August 21. Abalos said I quote, the LGUs, or local government units, are at the forefront and they know what is really happening on the ground, and that they have to weigh both economic and health factors in our decision. We deem it best to leave the decision to the wisdom and judgment of the IATF-EID, or Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases. He said the local government units, or LGU, and NCR will continue to strictly implement the Prevent, Detect, Isolate, Treat, Reintegrate, or PDITR measures to control the spread of coronavirus disease 2019, or COVID-19, and the multiple variants of its virus.
And let's head on over to Thailand, where the premier said some coronavirus curbs may be eased next month if data shows that infections are slowing down. We have more from our EBC correspondent there. Here's Gladys Pinuela. Hello, Gladys.
Hello, Alma. Here in Thailand, Alma, some COVID-19 restrictions could be relieved providing the lockdown measures are effective. This is according to Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha. The Prime Minister stressed that universal prevention guidelines for COVID-19 should be strictly followed by Thais to help prevent additional new cases and deaths. General Prayut stated through his Facebook account that despite of the rising number of COVID cases to more than 20,000, infection rates slowed down since lockdown measures were implemented in the middle of July. He also added that patients recovered from COVID-19 still outnumber the new cases. Prayut quoted as saying on his page, "We don't want a single person to die," stating regarding the number of fatalities he worried about, though it's still considered below the global death rate. He added that the Public Health Ministry concluded increasing efficiency of the lockdown means reducing the number of infection and death. In connection to this, the Center for COVID-19 Situation or CCSA decided to extend the lockdown until August 31st. Back to you, Alma.
That's good news, and hopefully number of infections will go down, so easing of some curbs would be implemented. Thank you very much for your update there, Gladys. Looking forward for more. Stay tuned.
Sure, Alma. I would be glad to bring you an update every now and then.
Yes.
Okay. So from back of Thailand, this is Gladys Pinuela. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, in Da Nang, Vietnam, authorities reported another surge in coronavirus cases. The details of the report from our Eagle News correspondent, Ileana Faith Sebastian. Ileana?
Hello, Gila. Yes, that's right. And here are the latest COVID-19 updates here in Da Nang, Vietnam. The update is from Da Nang today. Da Nang strengthens its testing and contact tracing efforts to seize COVID-19 transmission. The Da Nang Party Committee Secretary Nguyen Van Quang highlighted the importance of the second phase of mass asymptomatic testing on Wednesday afternoon, with the aim to identify all cases to put an end to COVID-19 transmissions here in Da Nang. According to Mr. Quang, the rolling out of mass community testing across the city in the most effective way is highly significant to detect the people who have COVID-19 but are asymptomatic or those who show no symptoms. The party chief stated that, I quote, Da Nang has seen positive effects of control measures after the first 3 days of tougher COVID-19 curbs. The positive outcomes were mainly attributed to fully compliance with the city's new restrictions among the general public and concerted efforts from the task force and authorities at local level to tackle COVID-19 while ensuring the supply of food items for local residents, end of quote. He added that testing set a record on August 18 in Da Nang, touching more than 115,123 samples studied, including 114,146 RT-PCR tests and 134 tested positive for COVID-19, including 66 asymptomatic cases. Authorities at local level are now instructed by Mr. Quang to access the result of the first phase of mass testing rolled out in their local areas and make accurate risk assessment at their locales. He mentioned also that it is crucial to determine the infection source of the confirmed cases in all districts across the city to stop the spread of the virus. The second phase of the mass asymptomatic testing began to roll out across Da Nang today in August 19. Regarding the COVID-19 cases here, Gila, on Wednesday, August 18, the Municipal Steering Committee for COVID-19 Prevention and Control reported 134 new cases, of which 87 are in managed isolation, 13 in local lockdown areas, and the rest were detected in the community. Out of the community-acquired cases, 29 were detected across the city through the One Door One test campaign, where only one representative of each local family who is aged over 18 are tested for the virus. Of this, 27 were of unknown source of infection. Since July 10, the total of COVID-19 cases recorded in the city have climbed to 2,138. Back to you, Gila.
Thank you so much, Eliana, for that news. You stay safe there.
Thank you, Gila. Reporting live from Da Nang, Vietnam. This is Eliana Faith Sebastian. We live in interesting times.
And let's go back to Thailand, where Pattaya, the Pattaya city, will spend 160 million baht to improve its tourism industry. Let's get more from Esther Odanga, joining us live from Thailand. Hello, Esther.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all our viewers. That's right. According to the mayor of Pattaya City, Mr. Sontaya Kunplum, the landscape redevelopment on a 4-kilometer stretch of Pattaya Beach will start in October and is expected to be finished by the end of the year. He said, and I quote, "The city of Pattaya needs to change its tourism strategy to draw local tourists to the city," unquote. The city will also have landscape beautification, which includes replacing pavements. This project will involve building car parking spaces for tourist coaches and vehicles for local visitors. They will also add underground public toilets. The landscape project will start from north of Pattaya to the famous walking street, and it aims to rebuild walkways, plant more trees, and redevelop the gardens. The city further hopes that the beach landscape redevelopment will add a new magnet to the area's sluggish tourism industry, having the Pattaya Council approve the 160 million baht budget. Pattaya City was greatly affected when the COVID-19 pandemic intensified. Before the outbreak, the city can attract up to 10 million visitors each year, with about 80% of tourists coming from abroad. The largest groups of visitors came from China, Russia, and India. Now that the foreign tourists disappeared, Pattaya City worked to improve infrastructures and landscape with hopes to boost its tourism. The city will also launch a beach restoration project on a 3.5-kilometer stretch of Dromchen Beach, which has been affected by coastal erosion. The sand filling, which requires 680 cubic meters of sand to cost 600 million baht, is expected to start early next year. And this update is according to Bangkok Post. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you for your update there, Esther. Stay safe and looking forward to more updates coming out of Thailand. Thank you.
Thank you, Alma. Reporting live from Pattaya, Thailand. This is Esther Odanga. We live in interesting times.
And time for a break. Gila and I will be back right after this. Stay tuned.
Magtanim ay di biro at sa pag-aalaga ng mais, walang kakornihan dito dahil ang kita ay panalo. Iisa-isahin natin ang ilang pwedeng lutuin. Ganon din ang iba pang produkto mula sa buhok at balat ng mais. si Robin Padilla at ito po ang Unlad, kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. Meanwhile, Myanmar security forces have killed more than 1,000 civilians since the military ousted Aung San Suu Kyi from power 6 months ago, an advocacy group said on Wednesday. The country has been in turmoil since February 1 when the armed forces seized power in a lightning coup, triggering dissent as protesters demanded a return to democracy. Security forces responded with bloody crackdowns using live rounds against civilians. But anti-junta mobs, some of whom have formed self-defense groups, are still taking to the streets daily in flash marches. Activist group Assistance Association for Political Prisoners, which verifies the deaths and mass arrests under the regime, said the number of people killed by security forces reached 1,006 on Wednesday. Kubogi, whose group has been named an unlawful organization by the junta and is currently in hiding, also accused authorities of weaponizing COVID-19 as the country weathers a deadly surge. So far, Myanmar has recorded more than 363,000 cases and 13,786 deaths from COVID.
In a related news, the United Kingdom Ambassador James Kariuki told reporters that the human crisis in Myanmar is getting worse each day as a third wave of COVID ravages the country. Take a look.
The humanitarian crisis in the country is getting worse each day as a third wave of COVID ravages the country. Prior to the coup, Myanmar had a strong vaccination record and was developing a COVID-19 plan. Now, Myanmar's health system is barely functioning. Unacceptable attacks on hospitals, doctors and nurses continue, and only 3% of the population are vaccinated. The UK is calling for an immediate and sustained humanitarian pause to allow vaccines to get in to all in need, and for medical and humanitarian staff to work without fear or attack. We will work with Council members and international partners, including Gavi, the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunisation, and the UN, to ensure the people of Myanmar get access to vaccines in an equitable way, regardless of politics, ethnicity, or religion.
The health crisis has been aggravated by a lack of formal medical care as many hospitals have been emptied of staff joining nationwide strikes against the junta. Patients are also reluctant to go to military-run hospitals, creating long lines for oxygen and medical supplies in pharmacies across Yangon. Council members heard from Special Envoy on Myanmar Christine Bergener and also Acting Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator in the UN Office for the Coordination of Human Affairs, or OCHA, Ramesh Raji Sangam.
In his pre-recorded talk to the people on Monday night, President Duterte ordered Health Secretary Francisco Duque III to prioritize the compensation and other benefits of healthcare workers. Let's watch this.
Kung frontliners, unahin mo na lang. If there is enough money, bayaran mo.
Duterte earlier signed Administrative Order or AO 42, which grants COVID-19 SRA of up to 5,000 Philippine pesos per month to private and public health workers with direct contact with COVID-19 patients. Duterte signed the AO to recognize the heroic and invaluable contribution of our health workers throughout the country who bravely and unselfishly risk their lives and health by being at the forefront of the national efforts to respond to the pandemic. The government's Bayanihan 2 budget has allocated at least 15 billion pesos for the health workers, SRA, and hazard pay. Last year, Duterte also signed AO number 36, granting health workers directly attending to COVID-19 patients with a risk allowance covering September 15 to December 19, 2020.
In another talk to the nation speech of the president, he reminded the Commission on Audit to refrain from publishing reports until agencies have completed their work. He said these documents could be viewed as gospel truth, a system that he said creates suspicions and is not fair to the people involved. Secretary Harry Roque also said that the president knows the limited utility of initial observations. Again, let's listen in.
Well, sabi nga niya kagabi, no, as a long-time servant of government, alam po niya na limited ang utility ng mga initial observations ng COA. Kasi ang proseso, pakukomenta naman ang ating mga ahensya. It is only after the comments are submitted that they finalize their reports. So sa mahabang karanasan niya sa gobyerno, more often than not, these observations are easily answered by the agencies. At yan nga pong pananaw na presidente pagdating po dito sa naging initial observations sa DOH. Because COA itself came up with a clarification that they were not accusing the DOH of any misappropriations. Naglabas po talaga sila ng clarification. No? So wala. COA na naglinaw na hindi nila pinaparatangan na nangungurakot ang DOH. So what do you expect the president, how do you expect the president to react? And of course, COA had to make that clarification kasi naging public opinion is baka nga nagkakaroon ng kurakutan dyan. No? Eh wala naman po dahil it was apparently what was reported in the media was an instance of non-feasance. Ito po yung sinabi ni dating Senadora Escudero, no? Failure to spend. Eh wala naman palang failure to spend. Ang hinihingi lang naman pala nila MOA, which are two different things. No? So makikita natin na ibang-iba yung naging public perception pag binasa mo yung kanilang initial observations sa hinihingi naman pala nila.
The COA earlier flagged the DOH's supposed failure to comply with existing laws and regulations in managing around 67.32 billion pesos in COVID-19 response funds. The DOH said the funds flagged by COA are accounted for and properly used for the pandemic response. The COA's findings have prompted calls for Health Secretary Francisco Duque's resignation. And despite renewed calls for the Secretary to resign, Secretary Roque said the health chief continues to enjoy President Duterte's full trust and confidence.
The Chinese government is donating a total of 1 million doses of the Sinopharm vaccine, the initial tranche of which will arrive on Friday afternoon. As part of China's pledge to substantively increase the supply of vaccines to the Philippines, China will be donating an additional 1 million Sinopharm vaccines that will arrive this Friday and Saturday, according to Chinese Ambassador Wang Xilian on Thursday. The diplomat said the donation, along with the continuous increase of Sinovac vaccine deliveries this month, would help address the need to augment vaccine supply in the Philippines. I quote, China was the first country to provide vaccines to the Philippines and the primary partner who has since the very beginning prioritized vaccine export to the Philippines, end of quote, according to Wang. To date, Chinese vaccines compose more than 50% of the Philippine supply, mostly Sinovac's CoronaVac, totaling 23.5 million doses, he said. Please stay tuned. Alma and I will be back after these short messages.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced. Not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Agila Pilipinas. A one-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Agila Probinsya. Tune into Mata ng Agila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Agila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to thank our health outdoor.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Welcome back. Economic managers have slashed the 2021 growth assumption to 4% to 5%, given the brunt of the strictest quarantine imposed to address risks from the more contagious COVID-19 Delta variant. Take a look. Now, the Interagency Development Budget Coordination Committee, or DBCC, said the earlier growth assumption of between 6% to 7% for this year would have been achievable if not for the implementation of the Enhanced Community Quarantine, or ECQ, in various areas nationwide, such as Metro Manila, which accounts for around 70% of the economy's annual output. Our strategy is to continue managing the risks carefully by imposing granular quarantines while allowing a vast number of people to earn a living. We will continue to use this period to accelerate the rollout of the vaccination program, it said in a statement on Wednesday. The statement also cited the government's careful balancing of COVID-19 and non-COVID-19 risks in the first half of the year. Thus, the positive output print in the second quarter at 11.8% from quarter ago's negative 3.9%. The second quarter growth print ended the 5th quarter of gross domestic product, or GDP, contraction caused by the pandemic. Economic managers earlier said they would use the 2-week ECQ in Metro Manila, which is scheduled until August 20, to fast-track the vaccination program.
Industry groups Chamber of Automotive Manufacturers of the Philippines Incorporated, or CAMPI, and Truck Manufacturers Association, or TMA, reported Wednesday that sales of locally assembled vehicles increased by 4.7% in July this year compared to sales during the same period last year. Automotive vehicle sales in July reached 21,498 units from 20,542 units in the same month last year. Passenger cars recorded a double-digit growth of 15.3%, with sales reaching 7,102 units in the previous month from 6,157 units a year ago. Sales of commercial vehicles were flat in July 2021 at 14,396 units from July 2020's 14,385 units sold. CAMPI President Romel Gutierrez said in a statement that the industry welcomed the year-on-year growth of 4.7%, but anticipates a decline in sales this month with the reimposition of ECQ or Enhanced Community Quarantine in NCR or National Capital Region, among other high-risk areas. Combined sales of CAMPI and TMA declined by 4.7% from 22,550 units in June 2021. For the January to July 2021 period, industry sales rose 46.1% to 154,265 units from 105,583 units in the same period of 2020.
Now, investments for liquefied natural gas or LNG projects in the country have been accelerated with the looming shutdown of the Malampaya gas field, with the Department of Energy giving a green light to 7 LNG projects. Now, Fitch Solutions, the research arm of Fitch Group, said the Philippines becomes a highly interesting area for energy investments with its energy-hungry domestic market and ample trade opportunities throughout the region. These LNG projects are investment of First Gen Corp and Tokyo Gas, Batangas Clean Energy, Accelerate Energy, Energy World Corp, Virus Energy, Shell, and Atlantic Gulf Pacific Company of Manila. Fitch Solutions added it is critical for the Philippines to have replacement of power source before Malampaya gas field will be completely dried up. It also said Malampaya is the country's lone significant source of oil and gas supply, which provides 30% of the power requirement of Luzon or 20% of the country's total electricity requirement.
Markets fell in Asia on Thursday following a second straight day of losses in Wall Street in response to Federal Reserve minutes indicating it could begin withdrawing its huge financial support by the end of the year. Expectations of an end to the largest that helped drive a global equity rally for more than a year added to the already somber mood on trading floors caused by the fast-spreading COVID Delta variant, which is forcing a re-evaluation of the economic recovery as fresh curbs are put in place. After chalking up record highs on numerous occasions in recent weeks, New York's main indexes ended in the red again Wednesday after the minutes from the Fed's July meeting showed most board members agree on tapering monetary policy in the next few months. The remarks come after a string of data showed the world's top economy was well on the recovery track, particularly employment, with more than 1.8 million new jobs created in June and July, and inflation running at multi-year highs. There has been a worry on markets for some time that the blockbuster economic rebound could fund a surge in prices that could get out of control if the Fed did not act in time. The sell-off on Wall Street filtered through to Asia, where Hong Kong, Shanghai, Singapore, Seoul, and Taipei all lost more than 1%, while there were also losses in Tokyo, Sydney, Manila, and Jakarta.
And the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, formally launched a region-wide program that would ramp up restoration efforts and plant at least 10 million native trees in a span of 10 years. Called the ASEAN Green Initiative, or AGI, the program will bring together different stakeholders to participate in an ambitious goal of planting at least 10 million native trees and regrow Southeast Asian forests. Take a look.
This landmark initiative for the ASEAN environment and ecosystem health germinated even before the pandemic and even before the pandemic began. It was envisaged by no less than His Excellency Kong Fook, whom I had the pleasure to meet with. We have the launching of this vision, the ASEAN Green Initiative, and this is even more crucial now as the region gears towards its long-term recovery from the ongoing health crisis. We thus deem it necessary to launch this now. The timing is also auspicious as we celebrate the 54th founding anniversary of the ASEAN on the 8th of August. All across the ASEAN, impressive feats of greening initiatives have already been started, already abound, such as Malaysia's 100 million trees planting campaign, Indonesia's 100 million trees for Borneo, and Singapore's 1 million trees, and the others you will hear more about later. We emphasize the use of tree species and vegetation that are native to an ecosystem, as they are more resilient and are better adapted to the climate, soil types, and other environmental factors, which will allow them to grow better. The region's lush forests, wetlands, and coastal and marine areas provide essential services to more than 650 million people in the ASEAN, minimizing environmental pressures while securing the socioeconomic condition of the people and the state are significant challenges that are surmountable through the robust cooperation among all key stakeholders.
Now, the launch and implementation of the AGI, or the ASEAN Green Initiative, are aligned with the United Nations Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, a global movement to accelerate restoration goals and commitments, which commenced this year. And the campaign is a rallying call on the urgent need to prevent, halt, and reverse the degradation of ecosystems worldwide, quote, to end poverty, combat climate change, and eliminate mass extinction. As always, Gila, thank you very much for keeping me company here today on ASEAN in Focus.
You're very much welcome, Alma, and you stay safe always. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Gila Pablo, your EDC Thailand correspondent, and we live in interesting times.
I'm Alma Angeles. We'll see you back tomorrow when we live in interesting times.